Hi everyone, and welcome to what I hope to be my final video of 2018. That is if I can film, edit it, and upload it before the clock strikes midnight tonight. For this video, I'm going to be doing my final book haul for this year. I know I did just post like my biggest book haul ever, but after filming that video, I realized that there were actually some books that I left out, and also I kind of made a book outlet order that hadn't arrived by the time I filmed that video, so I thought, oh well, I'll just have to do another one. I don't have as many books as I had in that one. This is going to be significantly smaller, but I still have quite a bit of books to show you, so yeah. First off, I actually have 3 books that I got for my birthday back in September, so that's how long these books have been waiting to be hauled, and that is the Grisha Trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. So that includes Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and Rune and Rising. These are in the new hardcover editions. I actually couldn't decide whether I wanted the new editions or the old ones, but apparently it's like harder to get the old ones in complete hardcover, so it just forced me to get these ones, which I'm pretty happy with. I do really love these covers, and also under the dust jackets are really pretty. I really like this like green one. You never see books in like this color. Next books I have to show you are all the ones that I got for Christmas this year. So the first one we have is also by Leigh Bardugo, and that is Six of Crows. This is the collector's edition. I want to say this was only available in the UK, so I think whoever got me this got it off of Book Depository. But I really loved the Six of Crows duology. This was actually the first book by Leigh Bardugo I ever read, and I absolutely fell in love with her characters and her writing. So I really wanted this collector's edition. The pages are red and it has this beautiful red map in the front. And then I also got Language of Thorns, also by Leigh Bardugo. This is a collection of novellas that go along with the Grisha universe. Basically they're like fairy tales that the characters in the Grishaverse would like read as children or something like that, and each one of these fairy tales is actually a retelling of like one of our fairy tales, which was super duper cool. And this also has really gorgeous illustrations in it, which you probably can't see. I also don't want to spoil you because some of them like all come together in the end, and it's just, that was very confusing what I just said, but it was really cool. And I don't know if all of them are like this, but this one didn't come with a dust jacket. Like, this is just printed right onto the actual hardcover. For Christmas, I was also gifted The Wicked Deep. This is a book that I read earlier in 2018, and I super duper enjoyed it. It's basically set in this little seaside town where, like, 200 years previous, these 3 sisters were drowned in the lake because they were accused of witchcraft. And so now, every year on this day, the sisters like come out of the water and possess these 3 townsgirls, and then they lure boys into the ocean and drown them. And I don't usually like these kinds of siren sort of stories, but this one, within the last 100 pages, just wowed me to death, and so I really wanted a physical copy of it. So yeah, I'm super happy with this. And under the dust jacket, if I remember correctly, is also super duper pretty. Yes, it is. I love that. And then the last book that I got for Christmas was Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I have never read a Sarah J. Maas book, but people absolutely rave about them, so I'm pretty excited to pick this one up. I'm not even 100% sure what the synopsis of this story is. I know it's like a fantasy novel that follows a girl who is an assassin, and I think she's supposed to be executed, but then somehow she ends up becoming like the king's assassin. Could be completely wrong on that, but I think that's what it is. Either way, I've heard a lot of good things about it. I'm excited to read it. And this is not a book, but it is book related, so I wanted to show it to you anyway. So my sister got me this for Christmas, and I don't know what the official title for it is, but I call them like book cozies. So basically they're these little like cushiony pouches, and you can put your book inside of them when you're like traveling or going somewhere else, and then you can put it like in your bag or in your suitcase, and that way it like protects your book from getting like damaged or scratched up inside of a bag or a suitcase. I'm so happy I have one of these now, because whenever I would take a book with me to like go somewhere, I would purposefully only take paperback books, because I tend to collect my books in hardcover and I don't really care if my paperback books get a little bit damaged, but it did limit the books that I could take with me places, and I would often end up having to start new books because I didn't want to take my current reads that were hardcovers with me somewhere in case they got damaged. But now I can, and my sister knows I love Alice in Wonderland, so she got me it in this Alice in Wonderland print, so I really like this. Oh, and And she also got me this little magnetic bookmark of Sherlock because she knows how much I love Sherlock. So now moving on to all of the rest of the books. I believe I have 3 books to show you that I got from publishers. 2 of them are still in their little bubble mailers, so let's unbox this. Or unbag it, rather. They never come in boxes, do they? First book is The Rule of One by Ashley and Leslie Saunders, I think is how you say their name. And I believe they're sisters. They might actually be twin sisters, because this book is set in a dystopian world where there's this like one child rule that has been enforced. If you have more than one child, that's like a big no-no. But in this book we follow a set of twins that have to like pretend to be each other when they go outside. Like one will go out but they're pretending to be one person, if that makes sense. It sounds really interesting, and I actually heard about this book on Colleen Ballinger's channel. She talked about this and she really liked it, so that made me even more excited to read it. But look at this cover. How often do you see like a very yellow cover? And the next book, I actually can't remember what this one is going to be. Oh, Smoke and Summons by Charlie N. Holmberg. I actually have no idea what this book is about. Let me read it. Okay, so from what I got from the synopsis, this is the first book in a fantasy series that follows a girl who is like a host for this ancient spirit that on her command, on his command, whoever the spirit is, on their command, she can be transformed into this horrible monster and like do his bidding. Sounds pretty interesting, and it is released on February 1st of 2019, so this is an ARC copy, so I'll have to get around to reading this before it is released. But yeah, it looks and sounds pretty darn cool. And then the final book that was sent to me from a publisher was European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman. I do believe this is actually the second book in a series. I can't remember what the first book was called. Oh, The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. That's what it's called. And I believe this series follows the children of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which automatically I want to read it. So before I can read this book, I will have to read the first one. I don't know when I'm going to get around to reading that one because these books are pretty big. But it does sound super duper interesting, so hopefully I'll get to it pretty soon. Moving on to the books that I got from Book Outlet. First up we have Amber House by Kelly Moore, Tucker Reed, and Larkin Reed, I think. I did not know it had 3 authors. I just found that out now. I have never heard of this book before until I saw it on Book Outlet, and it was for a pretty reasonably cheap price. So I looked it up on Goodreads. Well, first the cover, of course, caught my attention. Then I looked it up on Goodreads. It didn't have really high ratings, but the synopsis sounded pretty interesting to me. I forgot what the synopsis is, so I'm not going to tell you, but that's what the cover looks like, and it intrigued me enough to read it, so maybe it'll do the same for you. We have The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. This is a fantasy novel that I have wanted to read since it came out, and I just never got around to doing it. So I believe that this book follows a girl whose grandmother wrote these like really twisted dark fairy tales, but they turned out to be like real, like in their own little world, and the girl's mother ends up in this world, and so then she has to go there to try and save her mother. That sounded like a really, really horrible description of this book, but it sounds really, really interesting to me, so I'm very excited to read it. And also, the cover is gorgeous. If that isn't also evident, it makes me want to pick up this book more. We then have The Vanishing Game by Kate K. Myers. This book was on my Goodreads TBR for quite a while ago, but I ended up removing it for some reason because I did like a massive clear out of my Goodreads TBR shelf. But then I saw it on Book Outlet for a cheap price, and the cover is creepy, so I decided to buy it. Again, I don't remember really what the synopsis is about, except that it takes place in like this creepy house where like things change and move around, and there's a really dark secret behind it. That's good enough for me. I then also got The White Rose and the Black Key by Amy Ewing. This is book 2 and 3 in the Lone City Trilogy, I think is what it's called. I call it the Jewel Trilogy because the first book in the series is The Jewel. It is a dystopian series that is very similar to like The Selection, but it is kind of different. Either way, I really, really enjoyed the trilogy when I read it, and so I wanted to own physical copies of the books. So when I saw these 2 on there, I figured why not? Then it just leaves me 1 more to pick up. And we also know how much I love books with pretty dresses on the cover, so of course I needed this in my collection ASAP. The next book I have is 10 by Gretchen McNeil. This is also a book that I read earlier this year, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's a YA thriller, more like mystery novel that is a retelling of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I super duper enjoyed this book. I already said that, I think, but I really liked it. I did want a physical copy of it for my library, and so when I saw it for pretty cheap on Book Outlet, I figured it must be fate, I have to buy it. And then the last two books that I got are their classics collection. They're the Paper Mill Press classics. So the first one that I got was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is like my third copy of Frankenstein. I also got Jane Eyre, which is only my second copy of Jane Eyre, and even though I didn't really like this book that much when I read it, I liked this cover enough to buy a second copy of it. Who knows how my brain works, but it does. That is all for this book haul. Leave me a comment down below and let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one. Bye! If you have more than one children, that's like more than one children, I just said. This is like my third copy of Frankenstein. And then I also got Jane Eyre, which is only my second copy of Frankenstein.